Hello everyone. This is the 30th part of the story Game of Thrones, the Prideful one. Chapter 146. I was once again alive. It was a confusing thought to say something. Everything felt so surreal. Like I was moving through the motions. Perhaps it had been the shock of dying, or that the God that resurrected me this time was vastly inferior to the one that sent me here. Who knows? I know I didn't. Besides, everything was fine. My body moved the same way, maybe a bit faster, but I didn't think it had to do anything with the Lord of Light. I was certain this boost was thanks to the runes of the left hand of God activating for the first time completely. Are you feeling okay? Neltharion hissed in concern, as I walked around the edge of the wall. I looked at him and sighed. I actually feel too good. I'm not even stressed out. If the Lord took my stress out, then it was hardly a price. I chuckled, wondering why was I currently so calm. I see. Well, I'm off to hunt. Take care, Dad, Neltharion purred, as he nuzzled my chest with his head, something that had yet to fail warming my heart. Enjoy. I kissed his forehead, before seeing him fly away. Any ideas on how to fight the army? Daenerys inquired, making me turn around, to see she was walking towards me. We know how to fight their king, but how are we supposed to deal with his army? A very good question. He had a massive army, and I had to plan my moves carefully. And I had but a month to plan, thanks to Leaf, though. Everyone was here thanks to her, so fuck you, Leaf. We exploit their weaknesses. First we have to outsmart them, which is not hard, considering they all collectively share one mind, his mind, meaning if he's distracted so are they. Without his constant control, I'm sure his army would become nothing but a bunch of savages, feral animals if you may. I see, Daenerys nodded in understanding. Long-range fights should also prove beneficial for us, and things along those lines. I added, and for formations, well, we had planned to fight as a united front, but we have to avoid being all together, thanks to the dragon the asshole beyond the wall resurrected, while the asshole number 2, aka the third eye raven, told me nothing. I sighed. Well, you can count on me, Daenerys offered with a smile, making me feel uncomfortable imagining her on a battlefield. I won't take a no for an answer. You died, and showed me how unprepared my heart was to lose you. I won't let that happen again, she added, seeing my face. I sighed, as I looked at her, her face covered with one emotion, total determination. Very well, but you won't be in the heat of battle. The most I can allow is the range division. I smiled. Besides, I think it fits you. I don't think I've seen archers manage a bow like you. Flattering. Daenerys smiled, but I suppose you are right. It's the only active role I can fill, that in mounting the dragons, but I'm sure you have others plans for our sons. I do, I nodded. While the idea of her riding one of our sons into battle was truly poetic, I wanted to have my son as trash cleaners. Their flame power combined was able to kill thousands of them in a matter of seconds, and realistically, they were the only ones capable of fighting them and or stalling the massive undead dragon the undead king had. Very well, like always I will trust you, Daenerys sighed, seeing the enemy's army standing hundreds of meters away from the wall, so far away yet so near. I think I have an idea. What? I asked with curiosity. Let's use catapults to start attacking them right now. We have a month to plan. They don't. Daenerys explained, somewhat excited. Catapults, what a nice idea. Perhaps they were a bit too far away, but it couldn't hurt, I say. Carry on. Wait, what if I also plagued the ice beneath them with broken pieces of dragonglass? I think I have an idea. I smirked as I explained my idea. I think it might work. That could potentially slow them, and if we are lucky kill some, Daenerys said. The biggest problem right now is that thing. She pointed at the enormous beast. And to be honest, I had no idea how to kill something so big, which is why I was going to have my sons to stall him, at least long enough for me to kill the Lich. Neltharion Mormont Ravenicus Targaryen the first point of view. While father had yet to discuss with my siblings and I our role in this upcoming battle, I knew what he was going to ask us, for only us could take on such a task of trying to kill that massive monster that once was a majestic dragon. Not to sound negative, but I don't think we stand much of a chance, Crow hissed, and he was right. By size alone, that beast was the mountain of dragons, while we were at much average-sized guys. In human terms, there was no doubt in my mind he was superior in every single aspect, but even then, we would not fail. Like father says, when brawn doesn't work, use more brawn. If that doesn't work, try once again, and if you still failed, well, that's because you were not using your brain. We have to outsmart the beast, any idea? I inquired. He is big, but he can't fly, meaning, we have the speed advantage, but we lack the firepower to terminate him. Regal muttered deep in thought, if only we were fully grown, that's it, he added with an excited hiss. What? I asked. We are still teens by dragon standards, we can't match him. Regal laughed. Wow, your grasp of the obvious is outstanding, Crow muttered. Don't you see? We don't have to beat him. We only have to lead him to someone that can. Regal hissed, we are not the strongest creatures in Father's army. Crow and I shared a look, as we both muttered under the same time, the Krakens. All of them together, should be more than enough to kill the bastard, Crow hissed in excitement. Very well. Now let's discuss how we are going to move him close enough to the water. Ned Stark point of view. Ronard, MYB King and apparently the Queen, somehow, were on the wall. If it was for me, they wouldn't be near there, but I knew Ronard. He always had his reasons, and I couldn't do anything but trust them. Take care of your mother, brother and sisters, Bran, I smiled, hugging my son. I am a man. I should be here fighting. Bran complained. You are fighting a different battle, a different war altogether, I sighed. You have to be strong for them, if Robb and I don't come back, you'll be the lord of the house, and you will have to take care of them. I hugged him once again. Do you understand? Yes, Bran nodded, trying to hide the fact that he was crying. Promise me, you will come back. I will try, now go, I ordered with tears forming up in my eyes. There was no guarantee I was going to live through this, Ronard himself said. There was a big chance he himself would die, meaning this was beyond anything I was capable of preparing for. They will be safe in King's Landing, a lord commented. If we fall, no one will. Chapter 147. The morning of the day after my resurrection had dawned clear and cold, with winter chill screaming the end of an era. Daenerys and I went out at dawn to talk to Ned Stark, with Melisandre flying among us riding Crow. I was strangely calm, too calm. Perhaps what I had lost in the resurrection were my emotional attachments to my problems, who knows? Our mission was simple, we had to change our angle of attack, we had to fight this battle intelligently, one mistake would bring about the end of the world as we knew it. It took us an hour to fly to Winterfell, proving once again that my sons were the fastest method of transportation in the world today. Ned was currently commanding the northern troops for the coming battle, his breath smoking, in the cold morning air as his son and nephew helped him. Robb and Jon were doing other things, helping their father with the logistics needed for the upcoming battle. With a sigh I saw how as we landed the weak wind of our landing blew through the army, causing the Stark's banner to flutter, a grey wolf running across an ice-white field. Poetic, so much so that I wondered how many would die after this. Ned looked at us solemnly with a look full of joy and concern, his long brown hair moving in the wind. My king, Ned knelt in greeting, you got here just in time to see a deserter being executed. Ned sighed sadly. A traitor, well, in the end, it was inevitable, only an imbecile would not fear an imminent death. In the name of Ronard of the House Mormont, the first of his name, King of the Undols, King of Essos and the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm, I, Eddard of the House Stark, Lord of Winterfell and Guardian of the North, sentence you to die, Ned said, raising his great sword high above his head. And with one cut, Ned took the man's head. Blood splashed through the snow, as red as the wine of Dorne. The head rolled in the snow to my feet, leaving a trail of blood behind. With a sigh I used my flames to burn the head, noticing that my fire had changed. My flames were no longer red, they were blue. Impressive, Robb mumbled. My fire was blue now, but why? Any news? Ned asked, his eyes full of concern. I looked at the man. No, everything is still the same for the most part, I answered, our situation is the same. Ned sighed, I see. We have to change our approach, I said after a few seconds of silence. We won't win if we fight like we had originally intended. We need to bring the battle to our own arena. Robb looked at me and said, how are we supposed to do that? Well, that is what we need to figure out, I answered. As I gestured to my council, I wanted to talk about our strategy in private. Meanwhile, Daenerys and Melisandre started to machinate ways to help our cause even more. Melisandre point of view. His flame was different, Since the moment he woke up, his light had changed. What at first was a raging inferno that consumed everything of its path was now a calmed sea, eating everything on its way. It was terrifying. His fire was hotter, his eyes were colder. What price did he pay to come back? What did my Lord took from him to reignite his fire? What part of him did he lost that he was now so terrifying? Your husband, he's not the same, I said, knowing full well Daenerys could order her dragons to kill me if I said the wrong words. I know, Daenerys acknowledged, much to my surprise, but no matter how different he is still my Ronard. Love, the brightest flame of all, one that if properly made, never runs out. I see, it was all I could say. He still sees me with love. I can still feel his passion on every touch he gives me, Daenerys said, yet, he feels colder, devoid of care to anything but me and the kids. It's different. I will try and ask my Lord for guidance on this matter, but would my Lord listen to me? After I had failed to keep Ronard safe, after I had failed so many times to read his word. Let's see if he actually answers this time, Daenerys scoffed. I couldn't really blame her. My God was known for avoiding even its most loyal servants, with Ronard being the one he had talked to the most, and Ronard hates him. One can only wish. Oberyn point of view. I was but a month away from Winterfell, and yet the cold chilling wind of winter was already freezing me. Lands never touched by the ire of winter were now suffering under its mighty wrath, a truly terrifying sight to behold. Many would die of cold and starvation during this war, and even more would die from ratings. Times like this I was happy to not have a crown on my head, though, as Ronard's friend I feel sorry for him. The economic political terror he will have to deal with when all of this is over, will probably make him reconsider his life choices. Well, I suppose I can always make his life a bit easier, helping him rebuild the broken kingdom he has to rule. After all, that's what friends are for. My daughters will hate me for it, staying in King's Landing, but a few trips to the weapon market and the poison district will fix that. Sometimes I wonder, is it stupid to be best friends with someone young enough to be my son? Nah, I'm just awesome. Stop praising yourself, Obara chuckled. I did not. Well, that was creepy. I can see your face, is the same one you always use when selling yourself to others as the best warrior in the world, Obara giggled, so I can only assume you were mentally praising yourself. The pains of having people knowing every little detail about you, well, I suppose. But I'm very praisable, so let me spoil myself. Very well, Obara shrugged. Haha, I chuckled, wondering what kind of hell was waiting for me, and if I was even going to be able to help Ronard in the end. After all, a dead man can't help nobody. I suppose only time will tell. Olenna Tyrell point of view. Even from here, I could feel the ominous winds of the north blowing, my old bones creaking with pain, and for the first time in my long life, I felt the embrace of death near. I think we should let the king face this threat alone, and after the battle, we can take the crown from his head, Mace offered. With a grin, we would get it all. Be silent, and listen, I glared at my son with anger. You will help the king with all your might, and you will do it till your last breath, I commanded. I am the Lord. Mace snapped, infuriated with my answer. And yet, I hold all the power. I snapped my finger, and the 2 soldiers he had brought with him to my room pinned him down. I don't like the king, nor he likes me, but I do admire his skill, and whether we like it or not, we need him to win whatever is beyond that wall. I am your son. Mace cried in anger. Unfortunately, I nodded with a weak smile. Know that I do this for our legacy. No, that doesn't matter anymore. I do this for the one thing that matters. No, survival. Mother! Mace knew deep down what was going to happen. I am your son. Don't you love me? I do, but I love Marjorie and Loras more, I answered as the soldiers forced him to drink the lily poison I had bought from Oberyn. We are old, son. We have to leave the games for the newest generation. I said the last part with tears rolling down my eyes. You did your part, now is time I do mine, for a better tomorrow. The lowest thing a mother could do, kill her own son, but what other choice did I have? I needed this house to cooperate with Ronard, at least for this war. I needed everyone to be at his service. And Mace was an idiot with the idea of being a king, and once that idea is in someone's head, well, you can't stop it. Put him on his bed, he needs to be found. I ordered the men. I need a few minutes alone. Don't worry, Mace, I will soon join whatever hell you ended up. I knew for certain my days were numbered after all. Chapter 148. I talked for hours with Ned about how we had to handle the upcoming situation at hand. We had to debilitate the enemy before clashing with them slowly. They outnumbered us, meaning one mistake could prove to be catastrophic for our cause. We also had to focus on certain objectives first. For one, we had to deal with the dragon the enemy forces had. That monster alone was able to take on my army. Fortunately for everyone, my sons had a plan. They would fight the dragon and lure him into the sea, where the krakens would destroy the beast. A dragon might be the strongest creature overall, but a kraken is unmatched on the water, making their idea the best path to destroy that beast. Now Therian, Crow, and Regal will focus on the dragon, I stated once again. Meanwhile, we will use the wildfire to slow them down. We must delay the real fight for as long as we can. I already have all the archers ready with fire posts near them, Rob said. All our arrows are with dragon glass to maximize the damage. Good, I said. We also have some dragon glass bombs, John added. I think it is best if we have your ravens dropping them in their lines. He finished showing me the small bombs that were the size of a baseball ball. How do you ignite them? I inquired with curiosity. The alchemists said that they explode upon impact. I don't know the exact science behind it, John explained. We already tried them, and they work as intended. Very well, I nodded. I will have the ravens know about this. Already on it, Nick Fury cawed beside me. We still have more than enough wildfire to make more traps, Ned said. Wildfire quite the useful thing. We will use all of the remaining fire to keep the enemy lines at bay, I sighed. We have to even the playing field for when we clash. Our entire army is armed with dragonglass weapons, or enchanted ones thanks to the Red Witch, Rob said. We have yet to try if they work, I said deep in thought, but I trust her. Sorry if it sounds bad, but what happened to your eye? John asked, looking at my new flashy eye. I died, I answered, without skipping a beat. What? Ned said after a long pause of silence. I fought the Night King one-on-one and lost. I shrugged. I was brought back to life though, so not a big deal. How can you fucking say that? Ned shouted. Ned cursing. Well, that's a new one, Ned. While I appreciate your concern, do I need to remind you who is the king here? I asked with a faint smile. You are the king, but for that same reason, you need to stop thinking your life belongs only to you. Ned countered his resolve unwavered by my previous statement. I suppose. I shrugged. I learned my lesson and know the enemy's strengths. I'm here, so please stop yelling and wasting everyone's time, I sighed. How did you come back to life? Rob asked. The Red Witch prayed to her god, and here I am, I chuckled. I can't die, not until I kill the Night King. I will forever be in a prison of bone and flesh until I finish the mission forced upon me. Was he that strong? John asked with worry. Not really, I hummed. He just outclassed me in one area. In everything else, I was superior. What? Ned inquired, clearly still angry. Battle awareness, I answered. He sees what his minions see, meaning I was fighting someone with more than 1,000 eyes. I chuckled. He had no blind spots and had more than enough visual information to counter my every move. That's why we have to spread them, Ned realized, otherwise, you would lose again. To be honest with you, I smiled. I don't think he would crush me as he did before. Now that I know how he fights, I can at least fight on equal ground, but I doubt I will be able to kill him. I hummed. It would be more like an endless battle this time. If he dies, all of his armies die with him, right? John asked. Yes, I answered, wishing that was still the same. Then, we will put our lives in the fire for you, Ned stated. If all you need is to fight him without his minions around, we will make it happen. I looked at Ned with a faint smile. I'm counting on you then. Now Therian Mormont Ravenicus Targaryen point of view. Father was different since he woke up. His entire aura was different. He smelled dangerous now, as if a wild beast that had lived in chains for all his life was now finally free. I knew he still loved us. I knew he wasn't dangerous for any of us, but the change was troubling. His fire felt like it could burn me, and that was not normal. I wonder if this is the price for being alive once again. No matter what, he's still our dad, Crow stated, with a low hiss. I know, Regal nodded. Whatever he lost, we have to help him take it back, I stated, with determination. We are also creatures of fire. so that God has to hear us. Aye. Crow roared in agreement. Maybe we can all share the price? Regal added, we can all pay with father. Yes, perhaps. Daenerys' point of view. While Ronard was taking care of the army, I was making sure all our army was in the north on time. We had the need for every person able to hold a sword and kill. This was not a war for the throne but for surviving. I can contact all the priests and priestess in Essos, Melisandre offered. All of us together fighting for the same cause would prove to be a force to be reckoned with. It would take them months to arrive, I sighed, but send them a message nonetheless. I already did, Melisandre said. I contacted them a month and a half ago, and if they are as loyal to the Lord as for me, they will be here. A man has its doubts, a woman chuckled behind us. Those priests and priestess are pretty selfish, not all of them, but a great part of them. What do you want, Faceless? I rolled my eyes in annoyance. A man is here to help, the faceless man said as he took his face out, revealing a man around his 40s. A man needs this world as much as you do. Then help, being cryptic is useless, Melisandre scoffed. A man will, the faceless man smiled, as he pulled a blade from a box behind him, and it wasn't any blade, it was none other than Lightbringer, the sword Melisandre had mistakenly given to Stannis, the sword that belonged to the champion of light, as she described. This blade belonged to your champion, Valyrian steel blessed with the ancestral fire. This is the most lethal thing for the others in this world. It is, Melisandre nodded with an awestruck expression. Will this help Ronard win? I asked. This sword is capable of cutting through steel like butter, the faceless man nodded. It was meant to be wielded by him, but that's no the only sword I have retrieved. What do you mean? Melisandre asked as the man smiled, pulling another blade from the cage. Dawn, I muttered. A man believes some people will be angry, but a man doesn't care, the faceless chuckled. Chapter 149. After a few days of preparation, we were almost ready to face the challenge ahead, and I say almost because you can't ever be truly ready for a battle. Things can and possibly always will go wrong. My plan was simple, we had to abandon the north, but not in the absolute sense. After all, I had already evacuated everyone, besides the few stubborn people that refused to go, but that was on them. I was not going to force the little people to obey if they wanted to die. Well, who was I to stop them? Abandoning the north was just part of an elaborated scheme to lead the Night King's troops to where I wanted. In war, the location can win you the battle or destroy you. And with the numbers, the Night King has on his side, well, I had no other choice but to rule the environment in my favor. Which is why I'm going to be waiting for him close to the bay, that way. My sons will be able to lure the dragon into the water with more ease having the krakens finish the monster. Not only that, but the krakens could also help from underwater throwing boulders and stuff to the enemies. This was war, and I had to use every asset I had to its utmost potential. Each and every single one of my animals was ready to fight and had a role in this fight. From ravens to hawks, my birds were all going to drop bombs within the enemy lines, though not all my animals had a way to permanently kill one of those things. They had other orders. Like, destroy the legs, arms, and head of the undead without it. They can't move, and while still active, they can't act. We have sent all the traps, we are ready, Ned said. Traps, the holy grail of this war, if anyone thought I was going to fight the Night King without debilitating his forces. Well, if someone did, they were wrong. I had practically covered the north with wildfire mines and bombs. Their tasks were simple enough, weaken the undead army. I had small bombs everywhere, but my most lethal trap was on the beach. I had a rather dark plan if things didn't go as planned, which is why I had turned the beach into a possible gate of hell with the amount of wildfire hidden. My plan B was to set the entire beach on fire on a wild explosion of green fire that would not only take my army out but every undead with them in a 3-mile radius. Needless to say, this was my last resort to weaken his army. Though I had to be honest, I was impressed when Ned agreed. It was unexpected, not that I needed his approval, but he still agreed. Saying this was not a war that we could win with honor. Yeah, Ned Stark is okay with fighting the undead without honor. I'm proud of him, I am. Good, have all the archers ready, I said. We will depend on them more than ever during this fight. 1 week, we had 1 week before the shit started. 1 week to see if my presence here helped or destroyed this world. Daenerys' point of view. Dawn and Lightbringer, the two most famous swords in the world. The two swords I was flying to Ronard. These blades should give him an edge, Melisandre stated. Beside me, one blade was blessed by the god of light and the other by the stars. Even now, both of them are hot, their steel never goes cold. Legends say Dawn was forged from a fallen star, I commented. What about Lightbringer? I inquired. Valyrian steel blessed by my god, Melisandre answered. Ronard Mormont point of view. My ravens had recently informed me that Daenerys and Melisandre were coming my way with Crow and, with two legendary blades, Dawn and Lightbringer. And, well, I was a tad surprised. How in the hell did they get their hands on those two blades? Not that I complain, those two babies were leagues above Longclaw, but still, I was surprised. Daenerys will arrive within a few hours, I said, getting Ned, Jon, and Rob's attention. Why is she coming here? This will soon be a war zone, Rob inquired. Well, first of all, she's the queen, and she can come and go as she pleases, I chuckled, and she's bringing me some tools to better improve our chances. What tools? Ned inquired with curiosity. Oh, well, I hummed, Dawn and Lightbringer. As soon as those words left my mouth, the chaos started. How did she manage to get Dawn? Ned asked in shocked. That, I don't know. Oberyn Martell point of view. I was finally in the north, and this damn cold was making me regret ever coming here in the first place. It was literally freezing my balls off. I'm literally getting an icicle down there, Tyene said while trembling with cold. Stop thinking of Ronard then. Nymeria hissed. Never. Good God, why couldn't this fight be in a warmer place? The fucking demon had to be a cold one. Let's go, girls, we are a few hours away from where the king is. But I suppose things don't always go as one would want. Do you think we will survive? Obara asked, looking at me. I'm just curious. I don't know, I answered honestly, but we do what we must. I know, Obara sighed. My daughters were afraid. Not that I blamed them, I was afraid too, and if there was a God willing to hear I pray up there, all I asked said God was if I were to die, that our lives helped this cause for our lives to mean something. I didn't want to die if my life meant nothing in the end. I wanted to win this war. Let's go, my little snake, we have a king to serve and a war to win. I patted her head with all my fatherly affection. Yes, father. Chapter 150. Jon Targaryen point of view. The door in the Winter Hall of Winterfell opened, and I turned to check and see if it was Ronard. Ronard dash instead, it was Oberyn. Hey! Oberyn gave a chuckle at that. Good to see you too, Johnny. Sighing at that, I deflated back into my chair. With a low chuckle, I smiled. Sorry. I just really need to talk to Ronard. I told Oberyn. Well, all do, Jon, but he has to prepare for this more than any of us, Oberyn sighed. I know, I sighed. Daenerys' point of view. It was a grim sight looking from the skies while mounting Crow. On a beautiful day like today, nice and bright, it made it impossible to miss the approaching hordes of undead. Little by little approaching, the explosion of the wall barely slowed them down, and the traps Ned had set barely lowered their numbers. It was a terrifying sight to behold. Tell Ronard the undead forces are moving towards us. I ordered one of the ravens flying beside me. Watching the enemy get closer made me feel a sense of uneasiness that I couldn't get rid of. Ronard had already lost once to the monster we were facing, and there was no guarantee it wouldn't happen again. But I had to trust in him, on the king I was unequivocally in love with, my husband. From afar, the undead giants and massive winter spiders were easily spotted thanks to the spyglass Ronard had given me to check on the enemy forces. But among them, one stood out the most, the frightening undead dragon. Ronard was right, the one real threat besides the Night King was the massive dragon that dwarfed most of the army in front of it. Skeletal and falling apart, it looked to be more dead than the living, probably incapable of flying, but his size alone was more than enough to wipe armies off the face of the earth, and I couldn't help but watch in horror as it approached and challenged with his size the biggest buildings I had seen in my life. It pained me to see the sigil of my house being used in such a humiliating manner. No dragon should be forced to obey. Yet, for me, that wasn't the worst part. The horde of undead soldiers and undead animals weren't as terrifying as what was mounting the dragon, the children of the forest, hundreds of them, each and every single one of them on the dragon's back. Ronard didn't care much for them, but they were responsible for making the monster we were facing, and for me, they were possibly the most dangerous. From above, the undead army, decaying creatures flew in the air, eagles, ravens, and any other animal I could possibly think of with the ability to fly. Well, I had enough information for now. Let's fly back to Ronard, I ordered Crow, who hissed lowly in approval. A few hours later, I arrived back to where Ronard was. As I landed, I saw my husband, my king, planning strategies. He had barely slept during these last few days, planning, thinking, innovating ways to win this. Honey, Ronard greeted with a tired smile. My son, I greeted back, with a smile of my own. What do you think? Ronard asked me. Our attempts to dwarf his army barely had any effects. I relied with a heavy heart. The wall and the explosion barely did anything to the army. They keep advancing, slowly, maybe to show how futile is everything we do. How many? Ronard asked after a few seconds of silence. Several 100,000, close to 1,000,000, at least. I've never seen an army so large before. I replied. Daenerys. I know you may not like what I'm about to say, but I cannot allow you to stay here if that's the case, Ronard stated. Allow me? I asked back indignantly. I know he wants to protect me, but he isn't the only one with things on the line. Do not forget my titles and position, Ronard. I am the Queen of Essos and Westeros, the mother of dragons, co-ruler of the known world, and the mother of your children. You do not allow me to do anything, not this time. I know. Ronard said after a long moment of silence, giving me a worried look. But this time, I'm afraid this isn't about me being overprotective, or about our titles. This is about me being afraid of losing you in this war, among other things. If the tide becomes hopeless, should I fall, my burden, the task to save this world will be yours to bear until my children are old enough to fight back. Only you and my children can handle the burden I am asking you to take. Placing his hands on my cheeks, he smiled with tears running down his eyes. I love you. Remember that. Before I could even articulate an answer to that, Ned Stark approached us. Your Highnesses. Ned, any news? Ronard asked. Every man and woman old enough to fight are ready, Ned nodded. Ronard was about to reply something, but stopped, throwing a torrent of blue fire to a seemingly random direction. You're alive. Intriguing, a raven, Decada broken flew around, landing on a table close by. What do you want? Ronard asked bitterly. I came here to offer peace, the undead raven possessed by the Night King said. The words left my mouth in disbelief. Peace? I said, almost hissing the words out. What kind of stupid you think we are? Ned growled, holding his Valyrian blade ice ready to strike. The undead raven laughed. As your wife has no doubt seen, I have you outnumbered. Rather drastically, I might add. Not only that, but my forces are drastically more powerful than yours, and just to add the cherry on top of the cake, this winter zone is my territory. All your attempts to stop me have proved to be ineffective, so here is my offer, give up your... The raven didn't manage to complete whatever he was about to offer, for Ronard had burned him to a crisp with a wild torrent of blue fire. The thing I hate the most about that fucker is the bragging, Ronard growled. How did he manage to get here? Don't your ravens have an eye on anything in the skies? Ned inquired with worry. He probably used one of my ravens. He killed a few during a scouting mission, Ronard replied with a frown, as if he was hiding something from me. But what? Night King point of view. Ronard was alive, and didn't accept my generous offer of a quick death, and no undead revival I wanted to offer, but it mattered little in the great scheme of things. He was but an ant playing with the unavoidable depths of death. If we continue at this pace we will be on Winterfell in fortnight, one of my free-minded undead spoke. We have no need to hurry. The more we take to approach, the more we take to arrive, the more terror we will inflict upon their fragile hearts, I stated with delight. No, let us. I was cut off as me and all of my generals looked up. Every single one of us feeling the immense surge of heat directly above our heads. Oak, my children of the forest, dived towards me and wrapped me in a shield of magic. My other generals tried to run away while some decided to do their best to block the incoming attack. I felt the ground shake. Even from inside Oak's magic protection, I could see the blinding green light that erupted from the sky near the middle of my forces. Not soon after, a loud boom rang. As I felt thousands of my minions vanish from existence. Once the rumbling sound of the explosion died down, Oak broke the magic shield around me. Green fire was all around, burning bright. The explosion had left nothing, its wake but smoke, fire, dust, and death. Once again, I felt the same feeling invading the area, but this time targeting another point of my army. An explosion of the same magnitude followed, and hundreds of dragonglass shards flew in every direction, and like before I felt thousands of my minions died for good this time. What was this madness? A weapon so powerful it could be fired multiple times in such a manner. And how did Ronard manage to hide this from me? We have to move fast. If Ronard has more of that dangerous weapon, things could go wrong with me. Just 2 shots of that explosive, and I had already lost close to 200,000 soldiers. And many generals. Ronard point of view 2 hours earlier. I knew the Night King was approaching, and that he would not let the opportunity to brag about his mighty undead dick go by. But in case he didn't, I had sent Daenerys to check on his army from afar. I wanted to tempt him. To tempt his overgrown pride. I knew for a fact he was not going to attack Daenerys, not that he could. My plan had in mind having her safe and far away from him, but regardless of that, he was not going to attack. He wanted to delay our suffering, for his own twisted pleasure. With his attention on me and my wife, I would send my ravens and hawks, carrying my 2 latest inventions, the wildfire nukes. They were so volatile that it was a bet to use them, but they were worth it. With the help of Melisandre that blessed the mix, and a couple of maesters, we made the deadly liquid, using wildfire as a base. This plan was mine alone, and no one but me knew about it, as to avoid people showing overconfidence about it. My ravens and hawks would fly high above the sky, and wait, dropping the bombs just in the right moment. Unfortunately, this explosive weapon was hard to make, and I only had 4 shots with this, 2 for now, and 2 for a very specific situation. Are you ready? I asked Nick Fury. Yes, Nick cawed. This marks the end of part 30 of the story Game of Thrones, The Prideful One. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.